Shout out DLI. That's for the smart people. Anyway, so today is Veterans Day. We appreciate all of you guys showing up, some of you on last minute notice. We have a crisis in the White House right now, a crisis in America right now. And so what we've done is we've gathered some speakers that are veterans, that are community workers, that are community organizers, and we want to talk about that problem, that crisis, and we want to say no war in our cities. So with that being said, I want to introduce our first speaker. He's a former captain in the Army, go Army, and he was a paratrooper, airborne. Let's give a round of applause for Rob from About Face.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry, I got to lower it. Jolly, I'm shorter than you. And in case anyone asks about the beret, I am not Curtis Sliwa. That is not why I'm wearing this. You know, so like Jolly mentioned, my name is Rob Cheng. I'm a former U.S. Army paratrooper, former captain, and I'm a member of About Face Veterans Against the War. We're an organization of post-9/11 veterans who stand against a state of forever war abroad and militarization of our communities. And by virtue of you all being here, you know, a lot of the veterans today, you could have been out, you know, getting your free Denny's Grand Slam, seeing a parade, but instead you're here, right? To voice voice resistance against this regime that we have in the White House today. You know, I have a lot of complicated feelings that I'm sure a lot of people share here around days like today. You know, I walk around and people every day thank me for my service, especially today on Veterans Day. I got a lot of texts from my mom and my boss telling me, you know, thank you for your service, thank you for what you did. But seeing today our streets here in DC full of National Guard, seeing ICE tearing apart families, it makes me really question, what does the word service mean? You know, this past Thursday, I was leaving my house in Hyattsville. I was walking to the 7-Eleven to get some cigarettes. And I saw some of my neighbors out on the street. I was wondering what was going on. One of my neighbors had a big sign that said ICE ahead. The apartment building down the street from my house was being raided by 9 ICE officers in full battle rattle, like they were deploying overseas to detain a family living in an apartment building. But what I saw was the community, my neighbors, who I've only seen at cookouts and community events, come out, not just as a community to celebrate and to be a neighborhood, but come out as a neighborhood that is resisting ICE occupation of our cities. You know, I joined them. I texted my roommates and said, hey, we got to get out here. We got to get out here on the street. We stood there and stood vigil, and we watched as those 9 ICE officers left empty-handed. Everyone worked together and pressured the city to get the local PD to tell them to leave. And this is what I mean when I'm talking about service. This is what I see as true service. Service is standing with immigrant communities in this country. It's standing with black communities in this country against things like when the National Guard brutalized black youth on Halloween here at Navy Yard, just a stone's throw away from where we're standing. That's what service is. You know, the family that was under target of being deported was a Filipino family living there. And I couldn't help myself, being Filipino, seeing my family and their family. A family that was forced to migrate because of lack of opportunities in our home country, because our government is a lapdog to the U.S. government, not providing jobs and allowing unlimited access to the U.S. military in our homeland. I'm inspired by my kababayan, by my countrymen who take a stand and have been doing weekly protests all summer against U.S. occupation and against the corrupt politicians who run our country. And I take inspiration from them, and I see us rising up in this country doing the same. So, you know, like in the classic saying, you know, whose side are you on? This is a call not just to the veterans here, but the veterans who are not here. that may be, enjoying Veterans Day somewhere else, at a parade, like I said, getting their free meal, their free coffee, whose side are you on? Right? Are you standing with people like Trump, who wines and dines and has a lavish Great Gatsby themed Halloween party while everyone was losing SNAP benefits and was out of work? Are you standing with people who live in this country? Are you standing with working class people, black and brown people, immigrants, everyone who's on food assistance? Are you standing with those people instead? Because the door is open for you to join us. We're not telling you that you're not welcome. We want more of you here. So next time we come out, this crowd is even bigger. You're always welcome here.
It will be. We don't want Mexico here because Colombia is.
But there's more to think about. We're standing against the Trump regime. We're standing against these things. And this rally is really great. It's great to see people out here. But this isn't the end, right? We can't stop at just rallies, right? In getting us organized, we need to form the broad anti-fascist united front and join with our neighbors and speak up as ourselves as veterans and use our voices. We also, in addition to veterans, I also feel for people who are still in uniform. And I've talked to the National Guard who are stationed here from different states. I've had conversations with them, right? And once you get past the command talking points that they've been given, what they've been given to say, and they start chatting, most of them will agree, especially if you're a veteran, you start chatting with them, they think that it's bullshit that they're here. There have been National Guard who are taking a public stand and saying that they will not cooperate if they're being asked to deploy and police their own cities. There is a long and rich history of service members in uniform who have decided to refuse immoral orders. And that's why something that I want to uplift, sorry that we have, a URL link, but I just wanted to plug it in case people need to learn their rights. If you visit bit.ly/millrights, there is a list of resources and a secure outreach form from About Face to coach service members still in the military who want to figure out what their rights are and how they can resist. So again, that's bit.ly/millrights, MILRIGHTS. So that's kind of coming to the end of what I'm saying, but I want to lead everyone in a chant, if you can indulge me. So if folks are willing, please repeat after me. We won't back down, we won't retreat!
We won't back down, we won't retreat!
Keep the military off our streets!
Keep the military off our streets!
We won't back down, we won't retreat!
We won't back down, we won't retreat!
Keep the military off our streets!
Keep the military off our streets!
One more time. We won't back down, we won't retreat!
We won't back down, we won't retreat!
Keep the military off our streets!
Keep the military off our streets!
Thank you.
I love the chants. I love to get fired up. Can we hear it one more time for Rob? One thing he said that I want to reiterate, and I really want to keep reiterating it, we should all be against fascism. That shouldn't be a radical idea. And the number one way to defeat fascism, in case you don't know, is community and community organizing. So with that being said, I want to introduce a community organizer who has done a lot here in D.C. She is the co-chair of the Congressional Working Group and a member of Free D.C. Please welcome Michelle.
Good afternoon. I see the Free DC signs out there. That's right. My name is Michelle Chappell, and I'm the co-chair of the Congress Working Group for Free DC. I'm so honored to be speaking to veterans today. Turn the mic up. Is that better? All right. I am so honored to be speaking to veterans today. I grew up in an Army family. Yeah, I did. My dad served 2 tours in Vietnam, and his dad fought the Nazis in World War II. Today, I want to take a moment to honor all the military veterans who are living in the District of Columbia. You fought for your country. You know people who died for our country, and still you do not enjoy the essential right to vote for representation in Congress. Free DC is working every day to change that reality. I am also here today to talk about a federal occupation, not overseas, but right here in our neighborhoods in DC. We used to say that we fight them over there so we don't have to fight them here. I am not sure when the American people became the enemy. I don't feel like I'm the enemy. I don't feel like my children or their classmates are the enemy. I don't feel like kids celebrating Halloween at Navy Yard are the enemy. But we are being patrolled by our own National Guard carrying weapons of war. We are under surveillance by immigration agents working in coordination with our own Metropolitan Police Department. My kids both attend bilingual charter schools here in DC, and since the beginning of the school year, our school communities have been on high alert for good reason. At the literal doorstep of my younger daughter's elementary school, there have been several traumatizing instances of local police working with federal immigration agents to detain people based on nothing more than the color of their skin. The image that sticks with me is the video shared by one mom who was walking her young son to school. In this video, a man runs from masked, unidentified agents toward her family. He is tackled from behind. He is placed in zip-tie handcuffs and roughly picked up and carted off to an unmarked car. Imagine witnessing that as a kindergartner. This type of scene is playing out every day in DC. It is un-American and unacceptable. Our Congress is currently in the process of reopening our federal government. This should be a hopeful moment for our country. But y'all know it's not, for so many reasons. Let me give you the DC perspective. The moment the House comes back into session, there are 6 anti-DC bills queued up for a floor vote. The worst of these bills, and believe me, they're all bad, would remove our duly elected Attorney General and give Trump the sole power to appoint a new one of his choosing. What do you think will be the effect on our black youth, already over-policed and under-resourced, of a Trump AG in charge of the juvenile justice system? What will happen in our immigrant communities when Trump can weaponize the AG to go after any perceived enemies with the full force of our criminal and civil laws? And what will the National Guard and ICE agents be called on to do in service of Trump and his personal Attorney General? A militarized, terrorized, terrified population in the nation's capital. That is the future that Trump wants for us. Ultimately, that's the future he wants to bring to cities all around the country. But at Free DC, we are working toward a different future. If we fight back, then this occupation of our city and our sister cities around the country does not have to become a permanent reality. Our vision of a safe community includes enough food, education, jobs, and health care for all. We reject the militarization and criminalization of our communities, especially our black and brown communities. We keep us safe. Yeah! That's right, we keep us safe. At Free DC, we know that our community's liberation is a precondition for the country's liberation from authoritarianism. Therefore, we demand full control of our DC National Guard. We demand all National Guard troops off our streets. We demand the immediate cessation of MPD cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. We demand the repeal of the gross overfunding of Homeland Security. And at last, We demand statehood and equal rights for the people of D.C.
Yeah!
When I say free, you say D.C. Free!
D.C.
Free!
D.C.
When I say free, you say D.C. Free!
D.C.
Free!
D.C.
What do we need D.C. to be?
Free!
Thank y'all.
Free DC! And free America. So, our next speaker, if you're familiar with Flare, they were set up here since June of this year. In October, on October 3rd, National Park Services came out here with armed... Really? What about now? Well, okay, so Flare is the group that was running a few of these tents back here. And on October 3rd, armed federal agents came out here and violently kicked them out of their tent and stole all of their equipment, a complete violation of the Fourth Amendment right. And this was under the direction of Senator Ted Cruz and the Department of Interior. They were permitted to be here, just like our veteran tent over there is permitted to be here. But this is what we're up against. We're up against a regime that doesn't care about constitutional rights. They only care about silence and free speech.
Yep.
And we're here today to say, fuck you, we're going to do it anyway. I want to introduce one of the founding members of Flare. He's an Air Force veteran. Don't hold that against him. This is Randy.
Hey guys, how is everyone? Thank you for showing up. Like Jolly said, my name is Randy and I'm with Flare. So, I kind of want to talk about Veterans Day and what it really means. And I want to talk about can you guys hear me? All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Veterans Day and what it originally meant. November 11th, 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month, is when men stopped killing each other. And I'm going to paraphrase Kurt Vonnegut here really quickly. Said men, their guns fell silent and they could hear the words of God. And I want people to remember that, about the futility of armed conflict, of war, and what it gets us, and what it does to us, and how it causes multi-generational traumas. And so, one of the veterans that I admire the most is my dad. My dad was a Vietnam veteran. He was a victim of Agent Orange. He passed away a couple of years ago. But he never stopped. And he lived exactly how he preached. So growing up, my parents, I have 4 adopted siblings, and I don't know how many foster brothers and sisters, because my parents truly cared, truly knew what it meant to serve their community and their country. And so now I try and take that here at Flare. I'm gonna brag a little bit. A few months ago, I brought my son here, and someone was coming around, and I had a veteran identifying shirt on. And someone said, "Thank you for your service and for what you did." And my 12-year-old son said, "What he did, he never stopped." And we're not going to stop. In fact, on October 3rd, when we were decamped at 5 o'clock in the morning, that day, I took people from the Samud Gaza Flotilla families up to the Capitol so they could advocate for their families to be brought home safely from Israel. Okay? So we didn't stop. We kept working, And that following Monday, we went right back into the halls of Congress demanding that Trump be impeached, convicted, and removed. So like I said before, I was a little overwhelmed kind of thinking about what I want to talk about, because there's so much going on. But that's right out of their playbook. They overwhelm us, so we forget about others. And we're not going to do that. We're not going to forget about our disabled communities. We're not going to forget about our black and brown communities.
Hell no!
We're not going to forget about our queer communities.
Hell no!
We're not going to forget about our trans communities.
Hell no!
We're not going to forget about Ukraine.
Hell no!
And we're not going to forget about Palestine.
Hell no!
So I have a friend, my friend Danny. I like to talk about her because she's an amazing person. She's one of the strongest people I know. And so for a while she's been sick. And a few weeks ago she had to have emergency brain surgery. And I talked to her soon after that. One of the first things that she did when she got home was get online and provide some mutual aid to her neighbors. So Danny's been out here with us, and a handful of us since we started protesting outside of the Heritage Foundation in January or in February. And Danny's a musician. And so she was explaining to me that in the choir, when someone needs to take a breath and they need to breathe, others have to sing a little bit louder for them. So that's what we're gonna do here today. But not only do they need to hear us, they need to see us. So veterans, white veterans, we need to use our privileges in the right way. We're the ones that can get away with filming ICE and chasing ICE out of our neighborhoods. We're the ones that can walk into the halls of Congress without fear for safety of our lives. We need to use that privilege. We have our trans communities being denied health care and basic human rights, and blamed for helicopter crashes and school shootings. We need to sing a little bit louder for them. We need to show our LGBTQ neighbors that they are accepted and they are loved just as they are. So if you're a fellow queer and you're hetero-coded like me, you need to speak up. You need to speak up for all of our misters, sisters, and other resistors. We have veteran communities whose benefits are being cut. We need to sing a little bit louder for us. We swore an oath to protect our country with our lives and defend the Constitution and the American people. As a thank you, this administration has cut 60,000 jobs from the VA, including the suicide hotline. They've started the propaganda of VA employees committing benefit fraud so they can go in and take our benefits from us. Veterans don't need. We need you. We have our Native American communities whose land we stole, being denied equal rights and protections. We need to sing a little bit louder for them. The 6,000 Native women currently missing. If they were white women, there would be public outrage everywhere.
That's right. Right.
We have our Palestinian communities who've been crying out for 75 years about Zionism and the fascism. We need to sing a little bit louder for them. You know, there's a teenager that's still over there. He is still over there, right? Mohammed Ibrahim, 16 years old, Palestinian from Florida, being held in an Israeli prison. 16 years old, being held in an Israeli torture prison. So, when Flair formed, we put a lot of emphasis on that E, meaning everywhere. And we take it serious. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to sing a little bit louder right now, okay? You need to sing a little bit louder for our trans communities. You need to sing a little bit louder for our brown communities. I need you to sing a little bit louder for our immigrant communities. You need to sing a little bit louder for our disabled communities. Okay? Free DC!
Free DC!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Our day will come!
Our day will come!
Speaking of Palestine, do you guys remember recently there was an entire flotilla of boats that went to break the siege? The global summit flotilla. One of those boats was a veteran boat. Is everyone aware that that happened?
Yeah.
Good. Because the legacy media doesn't report on this shit, so we have to. But the veteran boat, there was one guy on it, a friend of mine. I've been to several actions with him. He's always in the street. He's always raising hell, and that's why I love him. And he was on that boat, captured by the Israelis, and he's home now. So what we're going to do is we're going to welcome him and have a few words with him. Former Army Ranger, please welcome Greg Stoker.
Hey y'all, I hate public speaking, so I'm rolling up with my speech on my phone like a bad school kid. So hello, my name's Greg Stoker. I conducted 4 combat deployments to Afghanistan in the 75th Ranger Regiment during Obama's surge. And now I'm an anti-imperialist activist and journalist. You know, I wanted to speak to y'all today to try and encourage everybody. I mean, not that y'all specifically need encouragement. You're here and it's freezing. That now is the time to put aside some of our political and maybe social differences and organize as a coalition and start getting involved in direct action and advocacy. I know a lot of you guys are already doing that, but I know this is also sometime. I know a few people who are just showing up at these things for the first time. So, as you'll no doubt agree, we've come to a dangerous place. Institutions are collapsing, and the only thing that seems to be expanding is the the Department of War budget and the police state. So, I was, as he mentioned, recently released from Israeli military detention as part of the global Samud flotilla, attempting to establish a humanitarian corridor into Gaza. And we organized a veterans vote and delegation because as veterans, we know a few things. First, due to the grotesque militarization of our society, oh boy, we carry a lot of social and cultural capital. People tend to listen to us or take notice when we engage with issues or protests because we, have some amount of authority when we say point 2, which is whatever violence we do or support overseas almost immediately comes back home. The same technology, for instance, and spyware and drones tested and used to enforce occupation and apartheid on Palestinians are at a local police department and ICE center near you. The impunity of the global war on terror and the tactics and extra-legal violence employed by the IDF recently in Gaza and the West Bank have directly influenced the Department of Homeland Security and the deployment of the National Guard to our cities, because allied governments and institutions learn from each other. They empower each other and normalize each other. So, we can all look to the Palestinians, because whatever our government and the moneyed interests that control it are willing to do to them for profit, they're willing to do to you eventually. So the real estate interests signing development contracts to turn the Strip into Gaza Lago are the same ones that bought up all the single-family homes during COVID, the neighborhood of Altadena after the California wildfires, and want you to sign a 50-year mortgage, rent until you die, and be imprisoned if you default or are evicted. They are the same interests that want to develop hundreds of miles of Venezuelan coastline, go to war for resources and land, and want every Gazan ethnically cleansed for the real estate investment of a lifetime. This is about privatizing land here and abroad, resources and labor, and you aren't in the class that profits. As things stand right now, this government has nothing to offer you but violence and empty promises about opposition to the current administration. For our politicians serve money, and the militarization of the police is the housing crisis plan. It's the cost of living plan. It's the health insurance plan, the student debt plan, and the climate displacement plan. And if we don't get organized and start putting up a fight, your VA benefits will be privatized and controlled by Larry Ellison or some other techno-feudal oligarch that's looting our tax dollars. Soon there'll be no more tax money going to social programs, back to the people, only money for war and the security state and your own suppression. Because the next lucrative forever war is not to be waged in Iran or over the Strait of Taiwan or even on the beachheads of Venezuela. It's to be waged here against us, and damn aren't those prisons friggin' lucrative. As veterans, we inhabit an entire spectrum of political beliefs, which we need to start working through and get organized, because this isn't a left versus right issue, it's an up versus down issue. And if you don't see that yet, and you're still only talking about Democrats and Republicans, then you don't know what the hell's going on in this world. So we are a very important political bloc, and let's get those Vietnam backlash vibes going again. And in the words of Malcolm X, we aren't outnumbered, we're out-organized. No war ever again for any of us, except, of course, class war.
So we're going to keep in the spirit of talking about Gaza and Palestine here. Over the last few months, there's been a lot of conversation on the internet about why don't these troops quit? Why don't they resign? Listen, that's a complicated conversation. If you haven't been in the military, it's hard to understand it. But with us today is a former Army officer who was the first Army officer to resign over the genocide in Gaza. That's a really hard thing to do and a big stance to take, and we want to make sure we're supporting him. Please welcome Harrison Mann.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me? All right, so I'll explain today why I'm a veteran and not a field grade Army officer like I used to be about 18 months ago. Starting in October 2023, I was one of, by my estimate, 2,000 or 3,000 active duty service members who went to work every day and supported the Israeli military as they committed genocide in Gaza and slaughtered innocent people around the region. And despite the evidence that I could see with my own eyes, whether on social media or classified satellite imagery, I was assured by the highest echelons of my military and civilian leadership that what we were doing was just and what we were doing was legal. But I knew it was wrong. And if you knew me in my Army career, you'd know that I was not the most stainless or upstanding, ethically or morally Army officer. You could ask my supply sergeant about that. But if I knew it was wrong, I knew the other 3,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines on this mission with me knew it was wrong too. But very, very few of us actually stopped supporting that mission, and even fewer spoke out. The only reason I was able to was not because of any special personal qualities I had, but because I was blessed with friends and family and people in my life who I could talk to, who believed in me, and who were validating my sense of right and wrong. And so even though I didn't know what was going to happen when I resigned publicly, I knew that there were people who would try to have my back. Today, we have a lot more service members in the same situation that I was. When I resigned, summer of 2024, I wondered if we can get our military to go along with backing genocide, what else can we get them to do? And today, unfortunately, we're starting to have the answer to that. Over the past weeks, there's a young Air Force officer somewhere behind a drone station who's shooting Hellfire missiles at a fisherman in the Caribbean. Shame! Shame! We have thousands of members of the National Guard who've been deployed to our city streets. And yeah, right now they're just doing landscaping or guarding hookah bars on U Street, but we know they could be asked to do more. And we've heard the threat of invocation of the Insurrection Act and discussion of deploying the 82nd Airborne to Portland. When individual soldiers or junior leaders have to make judgments on their own about what's legal and what's moral, it means we've already seen the failure of a lot of norms, a lot of regulations, a lot of safeguards, and a lot of levels of the chain of command. But unfortunately, that's the situation that an increasing number of troops are finding themselves in today, just as I did. And unfortunately, most of them are not lucky enough to have the same support system that I enjoyed. Most of them do not know people in Washington, D.C. who can tell them, hey, I know a great national security lawyer. Hey, I can let you crash in my apartment. Hey, I will still be your friend and support you publicly if you decide to make this stand. Those of you who served know that when you're in this situation, there's a lot of sticks and not a lot of carrots. So I want to recognize the incredible work that groups like About Face and Veterans for Peace have been doing, trying to create this community for service members who are struggling like this. But they can't do it on their own. So everybody who's listening to me right now, here or remotely, whether you're a veteran or not, whether you're an activist or whether you're an elected leader, it's time to start reaching out to the service members in your lives, reaching out to those random National Guard guys you see on 14th Street, and letting them know not just that you want them to do the right thing, but that you'll have their back when they do. Because when you find yourself in the unenviable position of being asked to violate the law or to harm innocent people, as I was, it makes a world of difference knowing that someone's got your back. Thank you.
Okay, here's what's going to happen now. I'm going to give some closing remarks on this, the subject we're just talking about. We're going to do a quick transition of sound system to maybe another one that works better. But what's coming up next, I think we're going to all enjoy. Ben and Jerry's has partnered with us to do a free ice cream handout for veterans. Now, got tied up because he's apparently a really important guy. So he didn't make it out, but that's okay. Ben and Jerry's made it out. They're setting the ice cream up right now. But we're going to have quite a few more speakers because I really think that today we need to drive home this point of veterans are against what's happening in this country. Pete Hegseth stood stood in front of a room full of generals to talk about Army standards. What a fucking joke. Have more valor in their pinky finger than Pete Hegseth ever thought. Right now, trans service members who have served honorably this country and served more and longer and harder than Pete Hegseth ever dreamed of it is being kicked out. They have more valor in their pinky finger than Pete Hegseth has in his career. Hegseth talks about soldiers as if it's a Hollywood action film. Those of us who have deployed and defended this country, those of us who have engaged with the enemies of this country, those of us who have seen what war looks like, knows that there's no archetype for what a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine is. Hegseth, Trump, and the entire lot of them don't know the first themselves. What let happen is that lot of people preach to us about service and sacrifice. Technically, the president did too. Technically, the Secretary of Defense, I refuse to call that fucker the Secretary of War. Secretary of Defense did too. But I don't think it is. So words. We the people. The people are going to dismantle democracy and freedom in this country. Well, stay tuned. Thank you guys for coming. We'll have ice cream set up soon. Where?
I think so. Maybe we can ask for a rotation of volunteers. I can't feel my... We're not canceled for tomorrow, so... Oh yeah.
Go ahead and turn it on.
Check.
Are we working now? All right, everyone. Rania, Khalek with Breakthrough News in Washington, D.C., just outside of Union Station. It is really cold outside, but it's worth it to be here because it's Veterans Day. And we're with a different kind of group of veterans today. It's a coalition of veterans, both locally in D.C. and national organizations, here to protest a lot of things and express their outrage for the National Guard deployment, for ICE kidnapping people off the streets, for the genocide in Gaza, for ongoing support for NATO, and on and on and on. And I have with me right now somebody who's very important, who we've had on Breakthrough News before, Greg Stoker. He's a former military guy, a veteran, here to express his outrage about a lot of things. Also, I had him on my show Dispatches not too long ago to talk about his participation at the time in the flotilla that was going to Gaza. And you ended up getting stopped by the Israelis. But Greg, why don't you tell us what you're doing here today? What brought you to D.C. in this 3rd degree windy weather?
Yeah, it's really the wind that's doing it. Well, I'm here for the same reason that I organized a veterans delegation boat aboard the Global Samud Flotilla. On Veterans Day, we'd like to remind everybody that because of the grotesque militarization of our society, we as veterans have a lot of social and cultural capital. We're an important political bloc, and we want to get organized as a coalition to put aside a lot of what may be like left versus right political issues, social issues, and really transform this into a up versus down issue. So, yeah, I mean, like bringing Palestine into it, the same technology that's used to enforce occupation and apartheid tested on Palestinians is now at your local police department. And the same real estate interests that bought up all the single-family homes in COVID, that lobbied for a 50-year mortgage, which is insane, are the same ones that are determining that every Gazan needs to die or be cleansed from their area ethnically so they can make Gaza law go. Like, all of these things are intersectional. It's all based off the same system, and I think that Kwame Ture said it best, that, activists mobilize for issues, revolutionaries organize against systems. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, channel the Vietnam backlash and kind of reawaken like a completely sleeping demographic of people. Because I will say that veterans can be incredibly frustrating to work with.
Well, I think it's also interesting, and on a day like today, it's important that you guys are doing this on Veterans Day, because if there's any institution in this country that I think the vast majority of people are kind of defer to, it is the military. There's like the very thank you for your service and patriotism that comes behind it. So there is a lot of weight given to something said by somebody like yourself who did go and, as we don't see it this way, but most Americans view what you've done as like being necessary to protect their freedoms and rights. So I'm curious if you can speak to the weight of so many veterans speaking out against these things compared to just your average person.
Well, I definitely want more veterans to do that. We are sleepwalking our way into a Iraq 2.0, with Venezuela. Do I think there's going to be an invasion? No, but we will probably hit some land targets with the massive amount of naval assets that they're reallocating to South Command is basically more than any saber rattling or show of force that we've seen before. And it's for the same reasons the Iraq War was: land and resources. That's it, and now we've got our little, helpful CIA Nobel Peace Prize winner saying, if you install me, we're going to help you privatize everything and you can get that. So it's more of the same, and that's going to cause another refugee crisis, which is going to further expand, the police state here in America. It's all part of this vicious cycle of violence, and, it's not going to end until we all get together, exercise some intersectionality and grow some class consciousness around this. Because if you're still talking about Democrats and Republicans at this point, you don't know what the hell's going on in this world.
So I also wanted to ask you, given that you referenced Democrats and Republicans, what do you make of the recent win of Zohran Mamdani in New York City, who was speaking out against the genocide in Gaza? And obviously he ran as a Democrat, but you saw a lot of red baiting attempts to make it so he couldn't win, a lot of weaponization of anti-Semitism, and it didn't work. Do you think there's like a political shift taking place in this country when you see that someone running for the mayor of New York, the mainstream media, the entire billionaire class, wasn't able to stop it despite the word socialism and despite the pro-Palestinian stance?
Mm-hmm. I think we're saying, whether or not we're talking about machine politics or the actual establishment, there's definitely a lot of social and cultural political shifts happening. We're seeing a transformation on the right. All these old political allegiances are dying, reforming. We're at an inflection point right now because the material conditions of everyday Americans, I think people are realizing they're not going to get better. So do I hope Mamdani's win kind of is a sign of change? I hope so. But then again, I think the powers that be are going to double down and protect their moneyed interests as they've always done.
And then one last thing I wanted to ask you about here. I saw someone holding a sign about, like, the VA being cut. And I was curious, me and you both watched Abby Martin's Earth's Greatest Enemy last night, and there was a lot of segments in it about the poor treatment by the military itself of the people in the military. So I was curious if you could just kind of speak to some of that.
I don't know. I got experimental anthrax shots. So, yeah. Yeah. And a bunch of...
Wait, what? Experimental anthrax shots. I'm going to need you to, like, elaborate.
Well, no, it was just, during 2009 and 2010, like when you were deploying, they basically... They test medication on you and stuff like that as well, because you couldn't, like, refuse. So, yeah, I just remember the experimental anthrax shots being, like, a massive panel of, like, needles that they just, like, stick in your arm, I think it was. And, yeah, that's all. So I'm just saying, like, the VA probably should still exist because things like that happened, throughout history, like Agent Orange, contaminations in bases, base water, stuff like that. Not only does the U.S. military destroy the environment, it also destroys the lives of people who serve in it.
And then you got to, get stopped by the Israelis. What was your experience? Did they give you coffee and tea and, a warm blanket when they stopped you from trying to break the siege on Gaza?
Well, the Israeli commandos that took control of our ship didn't really know how to sail it. They had our engine in neutral for an hour thinking that we were going somewhere, but we weren't going anywhere. And then they went the wrong direction. And we finally got to port. The Israeli prison guards themselves didn't really know how to deal with us because you could see that they only knew how to deal with situations or anything by expressing overwhelming force and coercion. And they had very clearly been given orders to temper that when it came to a delegation of people from 44 different countries. So, yeah, it wasn't the smartest group or most competent group of people, and just really goes to show that the only language they know is force.
Wow, so all that money and weapons they're getting from us and still incompetent. Pretty incredible stuff.
Well, I mean, from a military perspective, I've talked about this since the genocide began. They can't achieve combined arms. They don't get out of their vehicles. They created Stalingrad 2.0 in Gaza, negated their own one advantage, which was having armored vehicles. But you can't drive over rubble in armored vehicles because it throws tracks. All they can do is carpet bomb or saturation bomb using our weapons.
So brave, so brave. And there you have it. Greg Stoker, remind everybody where they can follow you because you're all over the socials. You've got your own show.
Yeah, so I have a bi-weekly show on Mint Press News called State of Play. Then I have a Colonial Outcast podcast, and then I'm on social media platforms at greg.j.stoker. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here today in the cold. That was Greg Stoker, everyone. Very tall, by the way, in person.
It's the top-down angle, yeah.
Well, there you have it. There's a few other people I want to talk to here. I'm just waiting for some other people to get finished with them. But anyway, so we're here in Washington, D.C. It's Veterans Day. There's a crowd that's here for a couple different rallies. We're going to keep streaming. Can I have you? No. Done? All right, well, then I'll be in touch with him later. But anyways, we're streaming the various speeches that are going on. I'm told that there's another rally taking place after the one we just saw. And there's supposed to be a few other figures here. We've got Medea Benjamin walking by, which, if you have a second. Okay, well, we have Medea Benjamin of Code Pink. Medea, you're on Breakthrough News Live. What are you doing here today?
I'm here because I want Veterans Day to be Armistice Day. Armistice Day after World War I was to say never again to war. And that's what we have to do. We have to center peace. And instead, one thing is to honor the veterans by giving them health care, giving them housing, make sure they're taken care of. But the other thing is to make sure there are no more wars and no more veterans. So I say, let's reclaim Armistice Day.
Even if it's 35 degrees outside. I mean, when you come out in this weather, it's impressive. I can't feel my hands, but I'm still happy to be here. No, I have gloves and I still can't feel my hands, but I've gotten acclimated to the Beirut weather.
You are
I'm a Mediterranean coastal person. But Medea, real quick, also, how do you tie, I think this is one of those important moments where we tie what's happening abroad to everything happening here right now. And there's a lot of dark things happening here and abroad. How do you tie those things together?
Well, it's actually funny that you're here now when the tanks are not here, because this used to be filled up with like 5 or 6, and the National Guard troops walking around here, patrolling around here. And my house is not far from here. And when I go out of my house and walk along H Street, there are still National Guard troops there. And it just kills me to see these armed people walking the streets, and they don't know what they're doing there. And if you say something like, go home, they say, yeah, we'd like to go home. They don't want to be here. So I feel like everything we do overseas, the blowback is at home. I wrote a book about drone warfare in 1987 when they were just starting to use.
You're the OG.
Yeah, I'm OG on drones. And now we see drones everywhere, including police departments having their drones. And of course, the Mexican border full of drones. And we see just so many of the same surveillance tactics that we have promoted overseas and, of course, collaborated with on the Israelis for decades now. We see that all in our communities. And unfortunately, what we do to people overseas affects us here at home. And let's not forget, of course, $1 trillion Pentagon budget. You know how much that is a day?
How much is that a day? I can't even think of what that means.
$114 million a day.
Ooh, imagine what we could do with that. We could give people health care, free child care.
We could send out helicopters and dump the money down.
I support that. I support that. And then now, can you talk a little bit about what's happening with Venezuela now?
Oh, my God. Here you have this president that really wants to fashion himself as a peace president, and he's blowing up these boats with absolutely no due process and saying, oh, we know that these are drug dealers. Even if they were drug smugglers, they don't deserve to be blown up. They deserve to get a due process and maybe get some prison time, but not to be blown up. And then, some of them are fishermen. We don't know who these people are. And then on top of that, to be having this massive buildup in the Caribbean, over 10,000 troops by now, I think, and the biggest aircraft carriers in the world. And then not only to be threatening, and let's not forget, because most people don't know, the bounty on Maduro's head, $50 million. That's like from the Wild West days. It's so disgusting. And not just threatening, but giving the CIA open permission, which is kind of ironic because it's supposed to be a secret organization, open permission to go in and do internal actions inside Venezuela, which Maduro says the CIA has been doing for the last 60 years. But now threatening Colombia and threatening Mexico. And the poor president of Mexico keeps saying, no way in hell. But, it's just you've got a president who thinks that Monroe Doctrine is alive and well. Latin America is the U.S. backyard, and the U.S. can do whatever it wants there. So we've got to really ramp up the opposition to going against Venezuela. And the last thing I want to say is I just got back from Cuba. And, the Marco Rubio is the one behind all of this. And the reason he's threatening Venezuela is, of course, for the oil and, access and all that kind of thing. But it's also because then he wants to topple Cuba.
Yes.
And we have to do so much more. Poor Cuban people are suffering so terribly with this incredible tightening of the noose around their neck. We've got to do more for Cuba and stop any kind of intervention in Venezuela and stop the sanctions, of course, which are killing people every single day.
Well, Medea Benjamin of Code Pink, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure. I get to see you at all of these events. You're always out in the streets doing the work, always in the halls of Congress, trying to keep them accountable. So thank you.
Love you and love Breakthrough News. Yay!
Thank you, Medea. So there you have it. We've got a bunch of people hanging around here today. Can you give me 1 second? I just want to go. All right, cool. So can you tell us your name and which organization you're with?
Yeah. So my name is Randy, and I am with FLARE. FLARE stands for Liberation and Resistance Everywhere. We're a 24/7 sit-in presence down at Union Station.
Oh,
Columbus.
wow, that's impressive, no matter how cold it gets. That's why you can be out here today. Oh, wow, that's brutal. The summer's brutal as well.
Hot, yeah.
So it's Veterans Day today. So what brings you out here for a rally today?
Yeah, so, I'm a veteran, and so, a lot of these issues are important to me. I'm also a peace activist, and so, going back to the roots of what 11/11 is, it is a time for reflection and a time to, really realize how, futile, war is, because, it's not the men in charge that die. It's the underlings. It's women and children that die. You look at what's happened, all over the world. The majority of casualties in conflict are women and children, especially right now. When we don't have these, wars like we used to, army against army, now it's different. And so women and children are caught in the crossfire.
And you mentioned so many different struggles, and you specifically mentioned the weight that veterans have and being able to speak out against them, because people do listen more, right? Yeah. So I'm curious if you can talk or elaborate a bit on what you said about that. You specifically were like us white veterans.
Yeah, so, and we do have a lot of privilege here, and so there's, number one, the veteran mystique that we have. We still, we signed up once to serve our country. We know what it means to sacrifice. We know what it means to put something before your own person, right? And, so, those things are really important to me, and, and I haven't stopped doing that. And so, coming out here and showing support and showing what it is to serve, because right now, we have people up on the hill, just down the street who haven't been leaders. They haven't had our backs, and so now it's time for, some veterans to step up and let people know that we have their backs, and especially, if you're a white male veteran like me, you have a certain amount of a lot of privilege that you can work with, right? And so we have to really use that right now, because especially women of color have been shouldering the civil rights movement since the beginning, and we have to pull our weight.
And then I'm just curious, since you're a veteran, I'm always curious what changed your mind, I guess? What turned you against the war machine that you were once maybe, thinking you were patriotic and wanting to serve your country?
Yeah, so, I was a medic in the military, and so there is a long history of, non-combatants serving in the military as medics. So I've always been, kind of more of that side of what I do. But one of the things that kind of really changed me was, seeing people come back and what had happened to them, and seeing what, it did to my dad. My dad was a victim of Agent Orange in Vietnam, and seeing what it did to my brother. I have a younger brother who has, pretty messed up knees and back and, shoulders, and, kind of what these conflicts did to them. And also, what it did to, I was in a military hospital. So I didn't necessarily go out there, but I saw everything come back, and so what violence and conflict do to humans, not just physically, but emotionally, and how long that lasts,
Well, I really appreciate that. Can you just remind everybody where they can follow your organization and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so we're Flare for Liberation and Resistance everywhere. We're on Instagram at Flare US, all of our socials, Flare USA, and FlareUSA.org.
Well, happy Veterans Day.
Thank you so much for being out here.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, I'm just going to go try to snag a couple more people. So I'm going to take an image over there. I'll be back with you in just a second. All right, so I am back with, can you tell me your name? And
Jamie.
Jamie, and what brought you here today?
I am with About Face, and I came here to support the various groups that are advocating for getting troops out of our cities.
And I saw you in the front holding the sign over there. Are you a veteran as well?
I am a veteran as well.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Quite a long time ago, I spent some time in the Marines, and I currently work around a lot of military folks as well, and I have a military family, and so veteran issues are still really important to me.
So I'm always curious, like, what pushed you into sort of like the activist anti-war realm, being a veteran yourself?
I think seeing the way that our service members are being used as domestic patrols and things like that are not in line with our values as service members, and so showing up for them and for our communities to say that that's not a system that works for us is important to me.
And also, I mean, there's a lot of connections I'm seeing being made with what's happening abroad and what's happening here, especially with, Trump trying to deploy the military in the streets, and you see what's happening with ICE. And so I'm curious if you can speak a bit about that, having been, experienced in the military yourself, and then seeing the militarization of authorities here and the behavior on the streets with like protesters, and I guess now with immigrants.
Absolutely. I think that, a lot of us served with the idea that we were protecting our communities here at home from any threats. And now we're seeing those same weapons and tactics being used on the street, being applied to civilians and families. We've seen violence against citizens, and that's not the way the system is supposed to work, and not the way that we're supposed to protect our communities.
Well, are you a D.C. person right now?
I live in Northern Virginia.
Okay, so you see the National Guard deployment in D.C.
Yes.
And I'm just curious how that makes you feel specifically to see that, like in the streets of D.C.
It's certainly unsettling to see that, both from, I know that, the troops probably feel like they weren't meant to be in their own communities with weapons of war, and I know that for a lot of us living in these neighborhoods and seeing them patrolling, it's very unnerving.
And I'm curious, you said you're from a military family. Like, did you have like some backlash with kind of the political positions? Like, I see you wearing a keffiyeh. I imagine you're probably opposed to any attempt at like regime change or intervention that we see coming from this government. So have you gotten any backlash from your own sort of like military family, or are they on board with you?
No, I think like my family is a multi-generation military family, and I think that internally our principles have always been to, with an eye towards protecting the oppressed and, people who are being endangered by authoritarian regimes. And so I haven't received any backlash. Our family, we kind of have the same sort of, I guess, political values in regards to how our military should be used and how our community should be protected.
Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for talking to us and for coming out in the cold today.
Yeah, thank you.
Stay warm. Well, there you have it. I mean, this is a really interesting collection of people. I don't usually end up getting to talk to too many veterans myself, so I'm going to go try to find some more because I think their stories are super interesting. And there's a massive Palestine flag that's now been lifted up, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, but it's really cold. I could use another one.
Okay. It's like a cute interaction. This is a special one. It's a herbawi.
Oh.
And then this is from Afghanistan.
Oh.
He's getting merch.
Yeah.
You're getting merch. Look at that.
I got a power bank. I got.
Wait, someone gave you a power bank? Yes. Where is this place where I can just get free things?
And a very cool kafia.
Got a
cute
Sarah Musa.
Oh, that looks cool. All right.
So I'm here for it.
All right. Well, if anybody's got stuff that they want to give me, please. I'm all for it. So Greg said he. Hold on 1 second. Can you hold this for me?
We got 20-something miles out.
I've only got the one each anyway.
All right. Where's a good spot? This is Craig, our lovely cameraman. Craig's great. Is this good? Right here? All right. So, Breakthrough News crew. I've got with me Harrison Mann, who has a really interesting backstory. You actually resigned from your post at the military over Gaza. Can you tell us what happened? What made you leave?
Yeah, so I was an Army officer. I was working at the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is like a small CIA that works under the Pentagon, and I was in their Middle East office. And after October 7th, the entire mission of my department and basically the entire agency was support Israel, support the Israeli military. And in the first week, even after October 7th, it became pretty clear what the Israeli military was doing in Gaza. And we could see it in the news and online like everybody else, and I could also see it in the intelligence reports and satellite imagery that we got at the agency. And you kind of start to feel like you're going crazy when you're seeing this slaughter and this brutality, and everyone's going about their job as normal and no one's talking about it. And so, you know, I waited a couple weeks, and it became clear that both in the White House and in my own office, nobody was going to tell us to stop backing the Israeli military, and I really didn't have a choice other than removing my own service.
What month was that? Because it was pretty early on, no?
Yeah, I put in my paperwork for the first time in November of 2023, and then because it's the Army and things are slow, it took me a few months to get out, and all that time I was also hoping, hey, maybe we'll change our policy, maybe it will end, but it didn't, and so I went public in May of 2024.
Okay, and I'm kind of curious about your trajectory, because, like, I don't know, was it a thing where you saw Gaza happening and you were like, whoa, this is making me question everything, or were you already kind of a bit skeptical of what the U.S. says it's doing and why around the world?
Yeah, I think by the time I joined the Army, it was already pretty commonplace that people understood that Iraq and Afghanistan were mistakes. And you know, I was like 23 years old, leading a platoon, and all of my sergeants, my non-commissioned officers, had been in Iraq 2 or 3 times, and they knew. They were like, we don't know what this was for. And then you kind of think that's a one-off, and as you end up in higher and higher positions, like I was at the headquarters for NAVCENT, which controls all the naval forces in the Middle East, and you see, okay, it wasn't just Iraq, it wasn't just Afghanistan. Like I worked for the Navy in the Middle East, where our focus was supporting Saudi Arabia in its war against the Houthis, which was also a man-made humanitarian disaster, and involved mass starvation, mass punishment of civilians, and mass indiscriminate bombing of civilians. And so you get exposed to these things, and you go to a meeting. Again, this is way before October 7th, where the senior officers are like, yeah, hate the Saudis and we don't like working with them and we don't love what they're doing, but that's the job, right? And you start to realize, okay, these are not one-offs. This is just kind of what we do. And I think it became harder and harder to pretend that those were the exceptions and not the norm once we reached October 7th.
And then so you're at the Defense Intelligence Agency, so you're collecting intelligence. I'm curious, like, what you're seeing that's making you go, oh, wow, like, this is really messed up. Are you seeing what the Israelis are doing just from what we're watching on live stream, like genocide on Instagram, or was there more to it for you because you're seeing how much weapons we're sending and that sort of thing?
I think it's being able to see what you saw, which was the videos, the news reports, and social media, and right, if you were somebody who was incredibly supportive of Israel or had a lot of faith in the U.S. government, you'd look at that and think, well, okay, that's what we're getting online on TikTok or whatever, but there's got to be something else going on that the president knows or that the Pentagon knows. And I could see enough to know, no, that wasn't the case. There was no other side of the story. Everything we could see from inside these institutions validated what you could see on the outside. And so that revelation or that big disappointment that actually no, there isn't some secret plan, there isn't some secret pressure that you can't see on the outside, really made me feel like I had no choice.
And did you feel like there was people around you who like were kind of in agreement with you? Like, was there like water cooler talk? I'll put it that way.
There was no water cooler talk because people understood this was a politicized issue, and you don't talk about politics in the office, whether it's the military or the intel agencies, right? And the same way, listen, where I worked, people wouldn't think twice about joking about, say, how bad Saudi foreign policy was or how bad the Egyptian military was, but people knew, especially after October 7th, this is a political topic. And so I felt, on one hand, I felt very alone because nobody was talking about this. Nobody was externalizing the fact that they were having a reaction like I was. But I knew, like, you know, the people you work with, I knew they were not all people who loved helping bomb children. And once I shared my resignation letter with the office, people came out of the woodwork and were like, yeah, thank you, I agree with you. And the reaction from folks in my office and in my industry was remarkably positive.
Really? So there wasn't like some big horrible backlash that you had to deal with?
No, there still could be. And at the time, I was quite worried about what the agency or the DOD might do to me. And if I'd done this today, we could imagine a totally different outcome, right? The director of the agency decided to let it go, right? The Secretary of Defense at the time wouldn't have cared less. Today, right, if they'd wanted to be vindictive...
You'd have Pam Bondi looking into, like, your financial records.
A lot of things, I was, right... My job was to work with classified information, and so if you want to find spurious charges against somebody, it's pretty easy to do, given that the entire nature of our work was meant to be classified. So if you're talking about it, you could accuse somebody of breaking the law.
So I do want to ask you too, Harrison. Like, you had a pretty cushy job, and you were on a good career trajectory. You would have kept moving up. It sounds like, you know, you kept moving up, and probably people liked you at your work. So, like, this was probably I imagine, a big decision because you're basically giving up your career. Why? What about this? Did you struggle with it? Like, what about this made you go, I actually, like, cannot continue?
Yeah. And you're right, by the way, I loved my job. I specifically was in what I thought was the most fun job in the Army for an area officer. You go work in embassies, travel, get paid a lot to do it. And I just, listen, I'm Jewish. If you're raised Jewish in America or in the West in general,
you heard it here, folks.
You get a maybe reductive, but I still think true perspective on one event in history, which was the Holocaust was bad. It was the worst thing that anybody could ever do, and we don't forgive people who were part of it, whether it's the concentration camp guard you try 70 years later when he's an old man, or the car company, Volkswagen, or whatever it was. And like, that moral logic was incredibly clear to me my entire life. And so when I found myself in this situation, it wasn't just like, oh, I feel bad. It was like, well, if we looked at this through the same historical judgment, it would be absolutely clear what my role was, and that it was directly contributing to what was happening in Gaza. And it's easy for a lot of folks in this line of work in government to rationalize it away and say, well, right, I'm not the one dropping the bombs. Hey, I don't even sell the weapons. In my office, we're just giving them intelligence. We don't control what they do with it. I thought, okay, in 50 years, if you said, we were just giving intelligence support to the Nazis, it would not be much of a defense, and folks would not really respect that reasoning.
Okay, so I didn't know you were Jewish. Does Jonathan Greenblatt know that you're Jewish?
Thank you. I guess he does now.
He does.
When I resigned and shared my resignation letter, I explained that same reasoning, and that the way that my family had taught me meant that you couldn't separate yourself from something like this.
So I'm just curious if you've been surprised by the weaponization of anti-Semitism throughout all of this, and going even beyond, because now we're seeing that being used, like against Zohran Mamdani, for example, in a pretty harsh way.
Yeah, it was really disappointing and frustrating to see, even back in 2023. Right, I'm Jewish, and both the most prominent Jewish leaders in the country, elected leaders, are saying. We have to do this. We don't have to do this because we love Israel and to protect Israel. We have to do this for Jews everywhere. I'm like, well, I'm Jewish.
Don't do this for me.
Jewish. I don't want you bombing and starving kids for me. And then you see people who are not even Jewish saying this, right? President of the United States, Joe Biden, National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, constantly frame this as not something we did for Israel, maybe because that would be difficult to defend in its own merits, but just something we're doing for Jews. And, that's aside from being deeply wrong, it's also quite dangerous, even if you just care about what people think about Jews.
And then lastly, I will ask you, Harrison, what do you have to say to those who maybe are thinking like you are still inside this system in some capacity and are really struggling whether they should stay in it or not?
There are people who would bear a lot more consequences for leaving than I did, so I don't judge everybody who didn't do the same thing as me. I'll also say I think we've had ample evidence that you do not, in fact, change these systems from the inside. Some of the people, especially in the Biden administration, who got famous for their idealism, like Samantha Power, who ended up heading USAID, Linda Thomas Greenfield, who ended up being our UN ambassador, these people ended up being agents of the helping perpetrate the genocide, unfortunately. And I know they didn't get into that line of work to do that, but that's what they found themselves doing. And in the end, no matter how high a rank I attained, I was never going to overrule the President of the United States. I was never going to overrule the Secretary of Defense. And so I think people need to be realistic about what impact they can and cannot have from within these institutions.
But there is life after it. What are you doing now? Where are you? Where can people follow you?
Yeah, so I was quite fortunate in that a lot of folks supported me and reached out to me after I resigned. So I now work at a nonprofit called Win Without War that does progressive foreign policy advocacy, including campaigns against domestic deployment of the military. So you're welcome to visit Win Without War site, but you can also go to notwhatisignedupfor.org, which is our campaign that works with About Face and some of these other groups to try and help service members prepare themselves to follow the law in challenging situations.
And you're talking about basically Trump trying to deploy the U.S. military or National Guard across the country domestically. That's what you're talking about when you talk about that?
Yeah, both domestic deployments that may turn unlawful, which we've already seen in Los Angeles, and if you're supporting Southcom and being asked to do drone strikes on unidentified innocent people in the Caribbean, this is for you too.
Well, I really appreciate you talking with us, and hopefully we can get you on Breakthrough News again. Yeah, I'll be harassing you, but it's really nice to meet you too. Thank you so much for everything you've done. So that was Harrison Mann, who resigned pretty early on from his position at the Defense Intelligence Agency. I think, do you want to get some of these speeches?
Moral conviction about the genocide happening in Gaza. Give it up for Hani Nofal.
Everybody hear me? Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Hani Nofal. I'm an 11-year submarine officer veteran. I resigned my commission in November 2023 during the Biden administration due to U.S. complicity in enabling Israel's war crimes and crimes against humanity against the Palestinian people in Gaza. Today we gather on what was once Armistice Day, a day not of victory, but of peace. At the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns fell silent, and the world dared to hope that war itself might end. Over time, Armistice Day became Veterans Day, a day to honor service, and honor it we should. But the greatest way to honor our veterans is to ensure we don't keep creating new ones for wars that never end. This year, Congress advanced another near $1 trillion defense bill. Depending on what's counted, the fiscal year 2026 National Defense Authorization Act pegs national defense at nearly $1 trillion, while overall U.S. military spending reached $997 billion last year, 37% of global military outlays, as much as the next 10 countries combined. We call it defense, but I ask you, defense of what and from whom? The 2022 National Security Strategy, our published version, says our strength starts at home, a resilient economy, technology, and healthy communities. The 2022 National Defense Strategy adds that we must divest legacy systems and shift resources to modern threats through integrated deterrence using all tools of national power, not just the military. Yet our budgets still prop up yesterday's platforms and crowd out tomorrow's investments. Look at a few concrete mismatches. The Air Force asked to retire the A-10 Warhawk as not survivable in a high-end fight. Congress moved to keep at least 103 in 2026, money diverted from capabilities we actually need. We keep procuring F-35s, even though adding jets beyond Pentagon plans, while lifecycle costs now tops $2 trillion and availability goals aren't met. Sustainment costs are far above early estimates. That's not reform, that's inertia. On accountability, the Pentagon has failed its audit year after year. We'd never accept that from a private contractor, yet we write bigger checks anyway. This is not about vilifying those who serve, in or out of uniform. I wore the uniform as a nuclear submarine officer for 11 years. There are patriots in our ships, shipyards, and offices. But good intentions cannot redeem a broken system where politics and profit outrun prudence. Since 9/11, the global war on terror has cost over $8 trillion and over 1 million human lives. We also face a downstream bill for veterans care that will stretch for decades. Spending heavily on endless campaigns didn't buy decisive security. In many cases, it bred new threats. And we must face a hard truth. Policy choices matter. I resigned my commission because of our nation's complicity in Israel's internationally recognized genocide in Gaza, a policy that has made Americans less safe, inflamed extremism, and undermined our moral standing. We cannot bomb our way to legitimacy or stability. This isn't strategy, it's a feedback loop of self-harm. Our own strategies, the National Security Strategy and the National Defense Strategy, say security depends on alliances, diplomacy, and restraint as much as hard power. We should act like we believe our own strategies. We're told we need these budgets to face emerging threats. Too often that becomes manipulative discourse, marketing to our indoctrinated fears. But the greatest damage to our national security hasn't come from these so-called threats. It has come from our own policies. Policies that fuel cycles of violence, then sell us more steel as the cure. And beware the serpent who calls for war. He never bears its burden, but he feeds on the fear of those who do. He hisses of safety and righteousness, yet his tongue drips of power and profit. Because war to the serpent is not tragedy, it's business. Now the course correction, grounded in our current strategies. First, align doctors to doctrine. If the National Defense Strategy says integrated deterrence and divest to invest, then measure the National Defense Authorization Act by that yardstick. Sunset platforms that services want to retire, prioritize cyber defense, counterintelligence, resilient logistics, munition stockpiles, and allied interoperability. The things that actually deter China and Russia. Second, buy capability, not headlines. Freeze add-ons that exceed service requests unless a clean audited case shows superior value. The F-35 buys should not grow until reliability and cost thresholds are met in public. No audit, no add-on should be bipartisan norm. Third, restore basic accountability. Tie a slice of each major program to audit milestones and independent test performance. If you can't count on it or it can't fly, you can't bill for it. Fourth, right-size the footprint. Our strategies emphasize campaigning with allies, not garrisoning the globe. Reduce permanent overseas presence, or it adds risk without return. Reinvest in surge capacity, sea lift, maintenance, and shipyard throughput, the readiness we actually lack. Fifth, fund what actually keeps us safe. Global arms spending is at a record high. We already shoulder the largest share. Security also comes from healthy communities, competitive industry, and trusted institutions. Pillars named in our national security strategy. Rebalance accordingly. Service is honorable. War is ruinous. Since 2001, veteran suicides have outnumbered post 9/11 combat deaths several times over. That isn't a talking point. It's a national alarm bell. If we won't change course for strategy or for solvency, then let's do it for the people who wear the flag. On this Veterans Day, we must choose. Do we want to be a nation forever at war, or a nation worthy of peace? True defense isn't measured in missiles. It's measured in ships that sail when they must, audits that balance when they should, alliances that endure in moral clarity that emulates the divine unquestionably, and children who thrive. President Eisenhower warned that every warship launch signifies a theft from those who hunger and are not fed. He was right then, he is right now. From armament to armistice, from blank checks to balanced books, from endless war to enduring peace. That is the mission worthy of our great nation and of the heroes we honor today. Thank you, and may peace be with you all.
Let's get it one more time for Holly Noble. All right. So again, we're out here today to collectively raise up our voices and saying that this has to stop. We have to be better than what we are presenting the world right now. We have to do more to take care of our communities, not destroy families. And how glorious is my beard in this wind, by the way? Yeah, all right. Our next speaker is a United States Marine Corps veteran. All right, fine, by myself. All right. He was a member of the Global Samud Flotilla to deliver much-needed aid to Gaza because of the failures of our government and governments across the planet. Give it up for Phil Tottenham.
Absolutely, bro. All right, thank y'all, and happy Armistice Day, not Veterans Day, as we know. It was taken away from peace after World War II, and it was originally established as a day to honor peace because the veterans had seen millions and shed millions of lives of bloodshed. Sorry about the mic, y'all. So I'm here today, and I went on the flotilla. I fasted for 40 days with other veterans and allies in New York prior to that, and I took a sledgehammer to the wall, the apartheid wall in Bethlehem before that, all because to say no more in our name, no more in our country's name, which is made up of people, of all of us, of all of beautiful hearts, right? It's our country, our streets, the war pigs that have been funding wars and sending people to die forever, and I've been serving people along Veterans for Peace to try and bring about peace. And they've been doing this since Vietnam, right? And before, Major General Smedley Butler said that he was a front man for capitalism, right? A front man. And this was the most decorated Marine Corps veteran in the history of the United States, and they taught us about him in boot camp, but they don't teach us about his politics. He wrote something called War is a Racket. I recommend that every veteran and every citizen read that book. It's a really short read, and it talks about that war is all about capitalism. It is run on capitalism, and these are the people that profit every single time off of war. It's the corporations. And they're sending the young people to die, right, to do this. And so it is us versus them. We have more in common with each other and with the people they send us to go kill overseas than we do with the war pigs. And this is what has been happening over time, again and again. It's the elite class that take on and they punish the rest of us for trying to live. And we just want equal lives. And that is what the Palestinians want. That is what every marginalized group wants. And that's what we're here fighting for. So please organize, plug in to whatever organization that you can, because this organization is needed because they have been organized forever, right? They learned about approaching fascism, approaching the government. They learned from approaching Smedley Butler. They learned from approaching Eisenhower. And now our government has been hijacked by fascists. Right? And it's not just Trump. It has been a plan. And so we have to end this now. The rebellion is now. Plug in, organize, let's free Palestine and free ourselves. Thank you.
All right, one more time. Let's hear it for Phil Tottenham. Y'all, the sun shines on us today because we're doing the right thing. All right? There are people in this country that are supporting what is happening across our neighborhoods, across our communities, to our family members, people that are supporting what's happening in Gaza and Sudan. And we are out here right now to be louder than those voices. So be louder than those voices right now. All right. Our next speaker is an Army Intel officer veteran, a Eisenhower Media Fellow. Please make a lot of noise for Josephine Gilbo.
Woo! Hey guys. All right, so can I get a hand of veterans that are here today? Whoa. All right. Can I get a hand of a veteran that's standing here today that's got a text message or a call saying thank you for your service? Same. I was wondering what I was going to say today, because sometimes when you do so many speaking events and podcasts, you don't know what to say. It's like you say the same things over and over. And oftentimes I ask myself, well, who's the audience? Who am I speaking to? And I think today on Veterans Day, it's so important that we speak directly to veterans throughout this country and to those who are still in the military. So this message is for veterans, active duty, National Guard, and reservists. I want you to think about what it means, thank you for your service. I want you to think about the word service. Service to what? A service to who? As I got those text messages this morning, it really started processing in my mind about my service. Who was I serving? What was I serving? In the past 2 years, I've come to the realization that 17 years of my life, I was a pawn. I was a pawn to this government. I was a pawn for the rich. I was a pawn for the elite to use us to do things that affect us for the rest of our lives, for them and their interests and their assets. And this has not changed. This is still where we are now. Every single person in the military right now is not serving to defend this country. Is not serving for we the people to defend the American people. They are serving for the interests of the warlords that work in this building right here. It is a shame. every single veteran needs to understand, no matter what political affiliation, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, a Green, whether you've never voted in your life, you need to understand how powerful your voice is in this fight. I say one person at a time. We can help wake up one person at a time. That's all it takes. That's such a small goal. I say wake up your neighbor. It's the easiest thing. If everyone woke up their neighbor, we'd have numbers like we've never seen before. So please, veterans that are here today, I hope this inspires you to go home, to go back to your job, your life, and continue saying what needs to be said. We need money here in America. We need money here for we the people, for our health care, for our schools, for our veterans, for our 1 in 5 children in America that go to bed hungry. We are done with forever wars. We are done with the warlords taking our money to go and kill innocent people, like in Gaza, like in Sudan, like in Congo, like in Iraq, like in Afghanistan. Those days are over. We're not going to stop, guys. We're not going to stop saying this. We're going to show up every day. We're not going to end this today. We're carrying this message every single day in everything that you guys do. You have to carry this message. We the people can change the trajectory that we're heading. You have to believe that. We can do it, guys. Thank you.
Make some noise one more time for Josephine Gilbert. I also struggle a lot with what to say when somebody thanks me for my service, and it may seem corny, but I've stolen some stuff from Andor Season 2. Alright? That's the thing. In the show, Andor gets Mon Mothma out of the Senate, and she says, "Thank you for getting me out," and he says, "Make it worth it." And that's been my response ever since. When somebody says thank you for your service, I say make it fucking worth it. All right. Our next speaker, Army Ranger veteran, member of the Global Samud Flotilla, anti-imperialist activist, and journalist. Welcome back to the stage one more time, Greg Stoker. Hey y'all, I'm back, and I have a crippling fear of public speaking, so if you came earlier, you're going to have to hear some of the same stuff again, but I'll spice it up and move things around a little bit.
Rangers lead the way!
Yeah. If I never have to hear that again, I'll be happy. I just got, like, flashback. All right, so, again, yes, my name is Greg Stoker, and I conducted 4 combat deployments to Afghanistan during Obama's surge and the ill-fated, unjust, completely for-profit global war on terror, which hasn't ended. It's just evolved to encompass other countries in Africa and South America. So, yeah, I just wanted to speak to y'all today to try to talk about, coalition building and organizing. One of the reasons we organized a strictly veterans boat for the Global Samud Flotilla, which was trying to open a humanitarian aid corridor into Gaza and be controversial enough to move geopolitics and get from an activism space and get people involved in talking about what's happening, not just to the Palestinians, but how it's impacting people in the United States as well. We wanted to get veterans on there because of the grotesque militarization of our society. We have a lot of social and cultural capital where people listen to us. We're an important political bloc, but we're not organized, and we're not getting super involved. And
we're all very, very grateful that you showed up here today so we can start putting these wheels into motion, because we definitely want to get this Vietnam backlash energy going again. Because this is and that means intersectionality within movements. You know, if we accept the premise that fascism is here, that it's imperialism turned inward, and that the next forever war is happening here against us, not in Venezuela, not in Iran, not over the Strait of Taiwan, but here, then, you know, we need to start getting involved with other movements. You know, we were approached by someone who said, like, I really like this protest, but we want to talk about Trump. We don't want to, you guys are doing way too much Palestine stuff. Well, you know, it's a really good linchpin to expose how the imperial system works. Because it was a bipartisan war, or a bipartisan genocide, just like the Iraq War was a bipartisan war. It was just like Afghanistan, just like the 7 other countries we bombed during the global war on terror. It was a bipartisan war, just like Vietnam, because they are for profit. They're not for you. And we want to talk about Palestine too, because these same, we know as veterans a number of things. You know, we know that whatever violence we do overseas almost always immediately comes back home. We can talk about, you know, the surveillance we do, the extraordinary renditions. We are seeing a new iteration of that now. And, you know, the same global policing techniques we used on the people of Iraq and Afghanistan, they're here. They're almost implemented immediately by our own law enforcement in the ever-expanding national security and surveillance state. So the same technology used to enforce occupation and apartheid on Palestinians that was tested on them was marketed to U.S. law enforcement agencies as tested in Gaza, as at a local police department near you. It's at a local ICE office near you. It's at a Customs and Border Patrol near you. So, and also, you know, this is just like in Venezuela, the Iraq 2.0 that they're trying to gin up jingoistic consent for amongst the American people. It's about land and resources and full spectrum dominance, right? It always is, and because, again, with Palestine, it's about land and resources. The same interests, and I said this an hour ago, that bought up all the single-family homes during COVID, that bought up Altadena after it burnt down in the California wildfires, the same interests that lobby that now you get the privilege of paying for 50-year mortgages that want you to rent until you die and go to jail if you default or are evicted, are the same ones who have determined that Gaza needs to be ethnically cleansed so we can make the real estate investment of a lifetime. So when someone comes up and says, can you do this in the Palestine stuff, I say, how about you get more intersectional? Because as Kwame Ture has said, you know, activists mobilize for issues, revolutionaries organize against systems. Yeah. And I know people in America, when they hear revolution, it's like, whoa, guys. It doesn't have to be this violent thing. But what's happening right now is clearly not working. There is no significant opposition party to what's going on, and people are like focusing on Trump. But it's part of the same system. They have the same donors. They serve the same interests. And again, they support bipartisan wars. I mean, there's not really any significant pushback to police militarization. The Democrats have always funded it. We're here, and now because Trump's here and he's so egregious, people are finally waking up, which is good, which is awesome. But we have to recognize that at some point, if you're still only talking about Democrats and you're still only talking about Republicans, you don't know what the hell's going on in this world. So as we move forward and try to get organized as veterans, let's think about intersectionality, environmentalism, Stop Cop City, you know, ICE, prison abolition. You know, we all need to be working together because as Palestine has demonstrated, it is literally all connected. So we need a lot of less left versus right and up versus down. And as veterans, we will never go to war again. Unless that's class war. Thanks. One more time for Greg Stoker.
The cirrhosis of defense, Pete Hegseth likes to say that diversity is weakness. And as I look out amongst the crowd right here, I see diversity as strength. Diversity of thought, diversity of opinion, diversity of education, diversity of employment, diversity of literally existing. There is nothing weak about the people I see in front of me right now. All right. Our next speaker asked me to keep it short and sweet in her introduction. So give it up for anti-imperialist journalist extraordinaire, Abby Martin.
How's everyone feeling? Everyone ready to get Trump the hell out of here? This monster comes in here feigning anti-war rhetoric. Again, the audacity of this man, right? After increasing drone strikes 400%, trying to invade Venezuela the first time, install a puppet dictator, Juan Guaido. Here we are again. Here we are again. Deja vu, except it's worse. They're locked in with all the tech oligarchs. They've institutionalized, they've created the infrastructure for fascism, and the Democrats were the doormats. They incubated this. And here they are, the bipartisan consensus for empire, running roughshod over the entire world, subjugating tens of millions of people under our boot. We're the children of the empire. We need to wake up. We need to coalesce our struggles together. We need to motivate each other. I just made a documentary called Earth's Greatest Enemy. It's about the U.S. military as the largest institutional polluter on the planet. What does that mean? Woo! What does that mean? When you unpack that, that just means their oil purchases every day. 270,000 barrels of oil purchased by the Pentagon every single day. What's the Democrat solution to this? Slapping solar panels on bases, hybridizing Bradley fighting vehicles. This is insanity. This is insanity. We cannot have a global military empire and a habitable future for our children. It is now or never. The time has never been more urgent. The political repression is knocking on our door. And the time is now. We got to get out of these atomized spaces. We're all here together with one message. We want a livable planet. We don't want endless wars. We don't want genocide in our names. Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Trump must go now! Trump must go now! Trump must go now! Trump must go now! Thank you!
All right, one more time for Abby! All right. Our last speaker here, I'm sure everybody knows, all right? He's a big guy. He's jealous of my beard. He has been a big voice in talking about social inequity, systemic oppression. He has been a big voice in uplifting marginalized communities and using his privilege as a white man to not step on other people's voices, but lift them up to be heard by as many people as possible. You know him, I tolerate him. Give it up for Jolly Good Ginger. He's not wrong, I'm jealous of his beard. Fine. But mine still has color. So, listen. Two colors. That's right, 2 colors. You're fired. All right. No, in all seriousness, you know, when I first got on social media, I've been doing it for 5 years. I was surprised that people listened to me, and I was even more surprised that people followed me. But what I never really focused a lot of attention on was my status as a veteran, because, I don't know, I didn't feel like I need to have a status to care about something. I don't need to have a black friend to care about racism. I don't need to have a gay friend to care about bigotry. I don't need to have a trans friend to care about anti-trans. I don't need to have an Islamic friend to care about Islamophobia. I don't need any connection to somebody to have basic humanity. I don't need to see see another human being suffer before I say human beings shouldn't suffer. But over the last couple of years, I have been more prominent and more upfront with my time in the Army and my status as a veteran, because what I found is that a lot of people in our community do look to veterans to be part of the solution, to be part of the organization.
That's your camera.
Oh, it's your camera.
Thank you.
Breakthrough news! Breakthrough news! Breakthrough news! Breakthrough news! I will take this. Yes.
Let's turn that on.
Okay, so it's on. Do I have to press anything else?
Let's see. Go ahead and test.
1, 2, 3. Test, test, test. Mic check. All right. Abigail. You guys. Yeah, are we good, Craig? We want to move here? All right. I have a special surprise. I've got Abby Martin. Abby Martin on Breakthrough News and in Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. It's amazing to be back here.
Yeah,
Love this
place. The weather is great. We're not freezing or have hypothermia or anything. Yeah.
Incredible to be here.
You're actually here promoting your newest film, which I had the pleasure of watching last night. It's so amazing. Tell everybody about Earth's Greatest Enemy.
Okay, so everyone's heard the statistic, a lot of people have, that the U.S. military is a larger polluter than 140 countries. What does that mean? It's just their oil purchases every day. And then you're like, wait, so what else are they doing? And you unpack all of it, and you're like, oh my God, the U.S. military is destroying the planet. Every base, all 800 bases plus, is a story of contamination, habitat destruction, and desecration of indigenous land, with no environmental regulation at all. So if they're doing that over there, what are they doing here? They're killing service members, they're killing everyone in the name of just relentless fossil fuel extraction and infrastructure. That's what the global empire is, and it's insanity. It's collective insanity. We need to wake up. We need to unite our struggles. And Rania, this movie is just an intervention. It's supposed to be a tool for the environmental movement so we can really understand how we need to confront U.S. imperialism as the central kind of core of a uniting force of all of our struggles together.
Well, so I think it's actually really cool that I got to watch this movie yesterday, and now it's Veterans Day, and we're at this rally with a bunch of people who are opposed to war, most of whom are veterans. There's so many parts of your movie that are about the military poisoning their own service members, which is so insane. And I guess I just kind of want to ask you the weight of that on a day like today.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that service members are not absolved from the military's impunity and poisoning. And that's what you really see kind of come to fruition with Red Hill, with people who are serving not only in these communities that are becoming sacrifice zones from the military's ravaging and pillaging, but people themselves that are Republicans, Trump supporters. I mean, they're the ones who are not receiving SNAP benefits as well. They're the ones who are receiving the brunt of the pollution in these working class areas. So it just really has to be said. It doesn't matter what faith you have. It doesn't matter what politics you subscribe to. You are a victim of military pollution. If you want a habitable future for your children, you need to wake up and realize what the military is doing on an institutional level to the planet.
Literally Earth's greatest enemy. And I also want to ask you, because you're on this wild tour right now, I'm so happy I got to catch you in D.C. I know you've got a bunch of other places that you're going to. This is an independently produced film. So can you tell me, I think a lot of people want to see it. Can you tell people where they can find information about where to watch it and why it's so urgent?
Yeah. I just feel like this is the most urgent issue of our time. I mean, we are on the precipice of so many environmental catastrophes. And when you really look at the perpetrator, who is doing this to us? No, it's not. The onus is not on us with recycling and driving Teslas.
Shorter showers.
Shorter showers. It's the perpetrators. It's the polluters. It's the military, it's the Pentagon, and it's U.S. imperialism as a system that has done this to us. And it is, again, digging our own graves. So the time has never been more dire to just tell simple truths. It's never felt more consequential or frankly dangerous, Rania, with the political repression on our doorstep, the ratcheting up of all of the censorship. we have to, like, the time is now or never. You know, yeah, we could have put this in film festivals. We don't want to. We want to bring it to every single town in the country, every military base. We want people to all be hands on deck. Rania, this is never going to get distributed. This is never going to.
Are you suggesting the algorithm is not going to send it into everyone's feed? YouTube?
It's too controversial. They never let it. So we have to do it ourselves. We have to just do it ourselves, just like Breakthrough does. I admire Breakthrough so much because it's so grassroots and it's really about like people's struggle and amplifying those voices, and that's what this movie is. It's trying to bring together all of our struggles around the world and show us how we are one voice, one fight, and we can win. Earth'sGreatestEnemy.com. Bring me to your city. Let's do this.
Abby Martin, Empire Files, director, producer of Earth's Greatest Enemy, with your husband, Mike Preisner, who's also a military veteran who turned against the wars. Thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you for coming on to Breakthrough News. And I think that's going to be it for us today, you guys. Veterans Day. So we wanted to celebrate it with veterans who share our values against imperialism, against genocide in Gaza, against endless war, and against bringing that war home here. So to everybody watching on Breakthrough News who tuned in on X, on YouTube, thank you so much.
Social media. This has to be a multi-front